All right, we have some major breaking news that will have massive implications on everything moving forward for the election here. Ruth Bader Ginsburg has died at the age of 87. And before we get into the political ramifications of all of this, we need to go ahead and just acknowledge that it is very sad that she has passed away. She has served on the Supreme Court for decades, and even though she has been a thorn in the side of people on our side of the political aisle, we never want to wish death or ill will upon anybody. So it is sad that she has passed away. She has been battling cancer on and off for quite a while now, and it looks like it was pancreatic cancer that finally got her. It was kind of odd, though, for as much as she has been kind of everything that the right holds in disdain, she did have an odd, very close friendship with Antonin Scalia, who was kind of the champion of our side. It was really kind of weird, and I think it should, it wasn't weird, actually. It was respectable, and it should actually go to show that just because somebody has political differences from you doesn't mean that you can't be that you can't be friends with them, that you can't find any kind of common ground whatsoever. And I think in today's politically charged society where everybody is cutting each other off over political differences, I think looking back and reflecting on the friendship of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Antonin Scalia, who are both now deceased, is a very good model to look at and see how, despite our differences, we can still come together and be friends, no matter how much you disagree with somebody. So with that said, though, this is going to have very, very major implications coming into November. For a while, we've kind of wondered, where is Ruth Bader Ginsburg? She's kind of been, we know that she's been hanging on by a thread for a while now, and it looks like she has finally succumbed to her cancer. So moving forward, I do fear that this is only going to serve to amplify all of the political violence and what's the word I'm looking for? Just the political rancor that we are facing going into this election cycle. There is only a couple months until the election, not even a couple months until the election. It's a month and a half away. And so while I don't think that Trump is going to try to push a new Supreme Court justice in before the election, we also have to remember that no matter what, Trump is in office until January 20th, 2021. And we do have the Senate on our side. Now, whether there will be kind of some of the squishier Republican senators that would balk at the idea of pushing in a nominee in that short time before, especially, if Trump, or I don't want to say if Trump loses the election, but if the Democrats successfully steal it, which we have to hope that they do not, do the Republicans still have spine enough to push through Ruth Bader Ginsburg's replacement before before Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's inauguration, under the premise that the Democrats do successfully steal the election, which we better hope that Trump has some safeguards against. While personally I think that they should, because the Supreme Court makeup is going to be massively, massively important moving forward, and being able to take somebody that was so far left as Ruth Bader Ginsburg and to replace her with a constitutionalist would be an absolute massive, massive victory and a really complete changing of the makeup of the Supreme Court. Because once Kennedy retired, John Roberts kind of took the role as the swing vote. John Roberts has never been reliably conservative, even though he was a Bush appointee. He has never really reliably sided with the Republican constitutionalist and originalist interpretation of the Constitution that we all appreciate. So that would really. So right now the makeup has kind of been like 4-4 with Roberts as the swing, replacing Kennedy as the swing. This would make it a solid 5. So really, right now it's kind of 4.5 to 4.5, and this would make it, 5.5 to 4.5. I mean, it would really be, or 5.5 to 3.5. Actually, yeah, it would make it 5.5 to 3.5. With the half being the swing vote. So this could be major, major news. We all knew that if Trump got reelected, that Ruth Bader Ginsburg was not going to make it through Trump's second term. But we are now pressed with this scenario earlier than we expected. And so how Trump handles it, I think, is going to be very, very interesting. I think the goodness in our heart says, out of respect of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, don't push forward. But I think that it's selling short it's selling out the long term for the short term. And because of the importance of the makeup of the Supreme Court, especially with the way that the Supreme Court has almost worked as a second legislative branch, I think that it is massively, massively important that we guarantee that it does not get stacked to the left. Because we know that the left serve as they appoint activist judges who are going to serve to actually write the law from the bench, as opposed to the constitutionalists that interpret the law from the bench and interpret the Constitution in the original text that it was written. So I think it is going to be very, very important to do whatever we can to push forward. Now, in terms of the optics of it, now that's another thing that we have to worry about, because it could be that pushing forward with a new judge could serve as really bad optics for independents and people in the center who think that it is political opportunism to push for a replacement just after the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, with an election looming. It's very, very tricky how to handle this situation, because it could be a damned if you do, damned if you don't type situation. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Trump handles this. I don't know that I would have any especially harsh criticism either way. I mean, because there's criticism and praise no matter which way he goes on this. Maybe taking the temperature of the country first, seeing whether the people actually want him to push through a new Supreme Court nominee. Now, what's interesting is just last week, just last week, Trump released his new list, his amended list of potential Supreme Court nominees. And on the list were Senators Ted Cruz, Senators Tom Cotton, and Senators Josh Hawley. Now, Josh Hawley has already said that he's not interested in it, so he kind of took himself out of the running, even though I think he would have been a very good candidate, especially given his age. But a potential Ted Cruz nomination to the Supreme Court could be extremely, extremely interesting. Now, I know Amy Coney Barrett was supposedly, kind of the supposed next in line. But I think when you add names like Ted Cruz, if he is interested in the position, I would almost lean towards Trump's just got to push him in there. Trump's just got to get him through. And the Supreme Court, like I said, it's just too important to lose. It's too important to lose. And this is only going to ramp up the activism on the left. It is going to make the Supreme Court front and center for this election, which I think actually could end up being a boost for Donald Trump, because I think that with everything we've been seeing from the left, the last thing people are going to want is another far left Supreme Court justice. Now, the other opinion on that could be that people prefer the balance of the Supreme Court, and so that they would want somebody from the left being replaced with another person from the left. To me, I don't see the sense in that. I don't think that, because essentially what you have when you have a balanced Supreme Court like that with a swing vote, which somebody always serves as the swing vote, you basically have one single judge that rules for the entire country, because where 4 and 4 are going to reliably stand, and it's all just going to come down to that swing vote every time. So I don't really like the idea of an entirely balanced court. I like the idea that the people elected a certain president, and the certain president puts a Supreme Court justice in that represents his promises on the campaign trail that got him elected. And Trump made the Supreme Court a very, very important part of his campaign back in 2016, and we saw from the release of his amended list that he's making it a very important part of his campaign this go around as well. So at the end of the day, I'm going to have to lean towards, I want Trump to push this through. I want Trump to push through whoever the next Supreme Court nominee is. Now, the question is, will he have time to do it? Will he have time to go through the entire vetting process? And how much of that has already been done? Would he be able to do that with some of the amended names that maybe haven't already been vetted? Or would you be able to take somebody like an Amy Coney Barrett that was vetted in the previous round, or I guess previous 2 rounds, actually, and be able to get her in quicker? So I'm going to have to wait to do a little bit more research before I get too far into what my opinions are on how we should move forward given this new information. Again, this is a developing story, and I was not anticipating this. I'm just going completely off the top of the head. A buddy of mine texted me that Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, and so I immediately pulled up the article and said, I got to do a video on this right now. So this is breaking. I haven't really had a whole lot of time to process this yet. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this video here and do a little bit more research, think about it a little bit more, and see what better insight I could possibly bring to you guys on what this is going to mean moving forward. Anyways, guys, go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Parler at Ram Thorburn. Also, there are links to my Subscribestar, Patreon, and PayPal down in the description below. Thank you guys very much for watching, and please come back to see however I follow up on this story, because this is breaking. I haven't had a whole lot of time to think about it, and I hope to see you guys there. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.